Welcome back to Ace Chat. I am Marissa, and today I am sitting down with Marth to discuss general asexual visibility, the fact that we don't have a whole lot of it, and ways that we can improve efforts to be better seen and better accepted. So thank you for joining me today, Marth.
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty good. Because we're about to sit down and, well, I mean, we are sitting down. We're about to talk about asexuality, which I like to do, so yay.
Yay, talking about ace things.
Yes, always. And actually, so I think a good place to start is just by asking you a little bit about how you ID, both in terms of your romantic orientation, your sexual orientation, anything else you want to mention, and how you came to realize this about yourself.
All right, so personally, I identify as a gray sexual homoromantic trans man, and this kind of came into my conscience when, well, I'd say it was a few years ago now, a couple years ago. I was in grade 10 roughly, and I figured out, holy like I was like, oh my god, I'm trans. Like, I'm a guy, like I've been experiencing this my whole life. But by that point I was like, I already know that something's, different about me when it comes to like how I view sex. And it's like, I don't want sex all the time. It's like I occasionally want it, but not really. So eventually I kind of started doing some research and I came across the label gray sexual, and I was just like, this fits. And it was like a revelation, and I was just like, what? How? This is the one thing I've been missing my whole life. Like, this explains so much.
That's a fantastic reaction, too. I don't think I think there are some people who don't realize that this really is a life-changing realization. Like, all the pieces, they're adding up. It took its time, but now we got it. So I am curious because I've heard both sort of reactions. Do you feel like your gender ID is kind of connected to how you view yourself in terms of sexual orientation, romantic orientation? Are they separate? And did trying to understand one of these facets of yourself, did it make it easier to understand the other parts, or just did it kind of lend to the confusion that you were trying to work through?
I think generally, kind of my gender is like, it helps me figure out what other labels I want to use, but it doesn't kind of make it any more confusing or any more clear. It's just they interact in terms of just the label I use specifically.
That makes sense. Like I said, I've heard both, and I think I almost want to have like a separate thing about that at some point. Okay, note to self, that's an idea for a future episode. But like this idea though of like how your different labels, how your different parts of yourself intertwine or don't, because for some people, there's the split attraction model where people are like, these have nothing to do with each other, and then there are some people who are like, they have everything to do with each other. So, all right, moving on. I'm talking to myself already. So anyway,
I do that too.
I think something else I'd like to touch on briefly is that I'm wondering what it's like for you to have come to this realization so young. Were you supported along this journey? Do people support you today? And how do you react to some of the people who say, like, well, you're still figuring yourself out, you're not sure? Or have you gotten that? I really hope I'm not the one who just brought up those stereotypes to you, but people say them. So I'm just wondering
Yeah.
how you've reacted to it.
I haven't gotten much of that, but I'm still kind of. It's a bit of like, it's been a bit of like a split reaction where it's like some people in my life are like no, that's, you don't know yourself, that's wrong. When, how do they know? Like, they're not in my brain, they don't know what I experience or how I experience life. And then there's been also been people who have been like, that's fine, that's cool, you're still, you're still like my friend, or you're still my family member or whatever. And so it's just been like, some people are like not accepting at all, and I'm just like, okay, you're not in my brain, like, why do I care what you think? You're not in my brain, you don't know how I experience this.
Right, and they act like they're the authority on you when
Which makes no sense. It's like,
absolutely no sense. I'm glad that, that's your response to all of this, because it can be hard to navigate, I think, when people are trying to tell you who you are. And because like, you have no argument against that except incorrect. And at that point, some people just don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
So,
it's annoying sometimes.
however, to switch topics a little bit, but also kind of not. Um, I'm curious if there are any ace icons or ace characters who have been instrumental in you figuring yourself out, either, in figuring out this label to begin with, or just realizing, oh, yes, them too, and me. And it makes sense.
One character specifically that like I found through books I read. I read a lot of books. There's a
Excellent.
character in this series called the Stormlight Archive, and her name is Yasna, and I love her. And she's literally just like, "Yeah, I'm asexual. So what? Like, what about it?" And like when I figured that out, I was like, "Me too. We have representation."
I feel like everyone remembers their first ace character because
Yeah.
where are they? Like, so that's great that you came across one because I haven't actually heard of that series. Is how is her asexuality represented? Is she sex favorable? Is she sex indifferent? Is she biromantic? Like, do you know more about how she IDs?
She's sex neutral and not homoromantic, hetero-romantic. She's just like, it exists. I don't particularly care. I don't have any strong opinions towards it. It's just there. And but like she's willing to be sexual for a partner, but she doesn't do it just for herself.
Gotcha. So the reason I asked is I think something that a lot of people don't realize is we'll talk about ace rep, ace visibility, and we'll be like, yes, this character is ace or this character is arrow. And a lot of the times when we say that, they're still their labels, their exact experiences are still very different from ours, just because all people are different, all situations are different.
Yeah.
So I think it's really great that obviously there are some things about how she IDs that are the same as the way you ID. There are some things that are different, but that there's enough overlap and also enough lack of representation. That part's not good, but enough overlap within this lack of representation that you still kind of feel this connection with her.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I don't think. Now I'm curious too, because I don't think I can. There are some labels that I can think of and can find like a face to connect it to. Like this character is Demi, this character is they just use ace. But it's wild the amount of characters where you can't think of a character who is like phrasexual or who is like I'm trying
Or
to
like
think of
any of
others.
these other labels. Yeah, it's like, come
Yeah.
on. Can we get
Well,
more representation, please?
right, and it's very upsetting. I say as I laugh because, laugh or cry. It's very upsetting because it could be so much it could be an easy thing to integrate. I mean, you could have an ace or arrow character and it's not even part of their storyline. They just are because they exist like how we exist, and it's not always about being ace or arrow or etc. Sometimes it's just these are facets of who we are within this larger story. So why can't we at least do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't get it, Marth. But
I don't either, trust me.
so I'm curious, and I realize this is a lot to put on one person, but okay. Are you ready for this, Marth?
I've got this. Let's go.
All right. I need you to solve asexual visibility. How do we how do
I need
we
to solve asexual visibility.
I mean, you come on the show, we ask a thing or two of you. Where some might say it's unreasonable, but others would say, well, but yeah, it is. So, what do you think we can do? What are the next steps to making ace voices better heard, to just increasing that representation?
I'd say, like, my immediate thought is for people who are like writing books or movies or TV shows, just including characters who just happen to be asexual, like, or somewhere on the asexual spectrum, not just not have a character and be like, oh, they're asexual, that's their entire identity. Just have it be a part of their identity, like a part of who they are. And for people in real life who are asexual or on the asexual spectrum or aromantic or on the aromantic spectrum, just listen to them and kind of share their content and just talk about it a bit more, I guess.
Completely. I mean, that's a reason why we do this. That's a reason why we we make a point of sharing any representation we find. So it's like it's there.
Yeah, it's like it exists and it
It
doesn't have to
really
be your entire identity. It can just be a portion of your identity and that's still completely fine.
exactly, exactly. Take note, directors of the world and book writers who are listening.
Just take note, content creators, like this is how you do.
Exactly. All right. Well, Marth, you just solved visibility. Thank you. That was very
I
very good of
just
you.
solved all of the asexual community's problems.
Well, actually, so that leads into my next question. I'm wondering, have you found any other ACE resources, forums? Do you have any ACE friends? How do you have these conversations with others, or do you have any of those resources?
Yeah, I have a friend who identifies as asexual, and he and I are both content creators. His name is Totally Human, and he does a lot of cool gaming stuff, and he's awesome. I love his content, and I stream with him regularly. Well, relatively regularly.
Oh,
Um,
here's a question I didn't even think of because I didn't realize that you stream. What is it like? And maybe this is like a nothing question, but what is it like being, well, when you say stream, do you mean like games? Do you mean music?
games mostly, yeah.
Okay, we'll get into music later because I remember you mentioned that too. With streaming and with these games, has it ever been something, has your asexuality ever come up in some sort of way? Because the gaming community, and I like gaming too, but the gaming community has this stereotype of not necessarily being the most welcoming to marginalized sexualities or genders or etc. Have you ever faced anything like that, or has it been mostly accepting of you?
I find it's mostly been pretty accepting,
Yay.
which is very, very good, and I'm very happy about that because it's like, yay, people are being awesome, yay, happiness. But it's also like, I don't really know of any other content creators besides like myself and my friend, and like besides like the two of us, and then one of our other friends who also streams with us regularly. Like, I don't really know anyone else who is, some sort of aspec or anything.
There's a few out there, but it's like you have to look for them, like with
Yeah.
all ace representation. And it's so funny because literally you'll go to like the ace forums on Reddit and you'll see these posts where it's like, I found another one. And it's like,
Yeah,
whoa.
it's like most people wouldn't think about that. Like most cishet people wouldn't think about that. But it's just like because like all of the characters in mainstream media are cisgender, heterosexual, and heteroromantic. But there's like no characters who are, gay. There's like so few characters that are, gay, trans, bisexual, or like on the asexual spectrum, on the aromantic spectrum. There's just so little representation, and it's just like, come on, can we have more of that, please?
Absolutely. And it stinks because as you were saying that, my brain was trying to like add a like plus sign where I was like, can I think of a single trans, asexual, biromantic, or bisexual, aromantic? Like I can't think of a single character who fits all of those. And it's it's hard because yes, we want more ace representation just like overall, but I don't think it's understood that we want more ace representation across the spectrum. I want to see a cupiosexual character. I want to see a frey romantic character. I want to see a romantic trans I don't know,
Yeah,
lesbian
like,
character. I'm just kind of meshing things together, but I want to see them because
yeah.
I don't. And just how freeing would it be if you could point to a character and say, wow, they're not just Ace, but they're also this micro label. That's crazy to me. And, it's also a person of color or it's a marginalized religion. Like, we don't have that.
Having that representation could be so freeing for so many people, just to be able to point to someone and be like, I relate to that. So,
Exactly. Well, so this is actually reminding me, I had said before that I want to speak a little about your music because you're a musician. And I think there's this lack of songs that aren't about sex or romance or both. And so I'm
yeah.
I'm right. And so I'm wondering what sort of music one you enjoy, and also do those feature in your own music, or do you try to write on different topics? Just what does music mean to you, and does it play into your these other labels, these other identity markers?
A lot of my music that I listen to is just kind of, I have a bunch of things. um, I try not to limit myself to one specific type of music. I try to just kind of listen to whatever I think sounds nice. So I listen to a lot of video game music, a lot of music from movies. I'm actually looking through my my Spotify as I'm talking about this. So yeah, there's like medieval music, there's some like indie music, there's like some pop music, there's parodies, there's sea shanties, there's metal.
Oh my gosh, you
so,
weren't kidding.
so there's just so many things that I'm just like, these are all, songs that I just like, that I just think sound nice.
So for
um,
you, is it more than about like the musicality? Is that, am I using that right? The musical sound as opposed to like the lyrics?
yeah, like it's more about music and how it sounds and how it kind of, and what kind of emotions it brings out in me. I also have all this variety because it's like having where it's all my music be like just like pop music about sex or pop music about romance. It's like it kind of gets boring after a while and it doesn't really apply to me a lot of the time when it comes to the more sexual things.
So it's like you have to kind of find your own. So like you're making your own, and that's perfect. And if you want, we
Yeah.
can totally link to that, by the way.
Yeah, and a lot of the music that I make is more like contemporary classical music. I have a piece that I composed for harpsichord that's more
Oh wow.
kind of regal in a way. I don't know if that's the right word for that. um, but it's more like a royal family coming from like from one nation arriving in the palace of another nation, and like another nation's royal family, and it's just like these two royal political powers are in one place together.
So you almost have like a storyline behind it.
Yeah, yeah, almost. And then the second one, my second piece that I ever completed was like, it's again in that sort of contemporary classical style. Actually, the specific form is called a Passacaglia, which is like a somber dance that originated in Spain in like the
Ooh.
1800s. And I was just like, okay. I wrote that one after a bit of a tough breakup. Basically, I was hurting afterwards and I was just like, I want to get mad about this. So then I just put it into music and was just like, here you go. I'm mad about this.
Hey, I mean, awesome outlet, and obviously you're very well versed in music creation, music understanding. I could talk all day about asexuality, aromanticism, but some of the terms you used, I have no idea what you were talking about. But you do. You sound very in the know, and it's impressive. So I think that's awesome that this has been an outlet for you to explore some of your feelings, that you focus on the feelings of the music and, are able to maybe not have to deal with lyrics of other songs.
Yeah, and like with some of the music that I listen to, I kind of do try to focus on like the what the song is saying, just so that I can try to understand the story a bit more. Like a very good example is Sabaton. The entirety of their most recent album, which is I think called The Great War, yeah. Like that entire thing is just about World War One,
Oh.
because like their entire thing is um, Swedish heavy metal. It's like Swedish history metal that they then
Never
translate
heard of
and
that
sing in English.
before. Wow.
It's great.
Well, when I'm listening to this again to make edits, I'll have to pull that name and look it up. Your Martha's been giving me a bunch of recommendations, and I have heard of none of them. But I'm excited to go look them all up. I've never. This is the most millennial I've ever felt, like in an old way, like because normally they make you feel millennial in like a young bad way. So
Yeah, but I was just like, I feel millennial, like old.
gosh, this is a weird experience. But yeah, I think I'm trying to think if there were any other big questions I had because I think these were the main ones. I'm wondering because you do ID as trans and homoromantic as well, and there's this discussion about whether asexuality, gray sexuality, all of it belongs in the LGBTQIA community.
It
What do
does.
you? Okay, perfect.
Like,
Before I get even, and I
I was
agree.
just like, before you can even finish that question, yes, it does.
I agree
I
completely. And yeah, I don't I almost feel weird even making it a conversation, but like I know people who disagree. So I feel like I'm still trying to find more people who do so that I could understand where that's coming from, but
Mhm.
it's hard especially because it's like to negate someone's lived experience and say, well, you're not oppressed in this exact way, or you don't experience this exact thing, while ignoring, but you do experience this and have, been prejudiced in this way, and this unique discrimination is like it doesn't make sense to me. You're only seeing not even half of the picture. It's like you covered your eye, made a little circle, and said, "That's all there is," right?
Yeah, and it's like with the way I look at it, it's like some people are like, the A stands for ally, and I'm like, no. Like, I am asexual. I am on the asexual spectrum. Asexual people and aromantic people are still minorities. The majority of people are cisgender, heterosexual, and heteroromantic. People,
Allonormative, yeah.
yeah, that's what we call a cis normative society. But some of us aren't on that same experience. Some of us don't experience sexual attraction in a society that tells us that even though we should be ashamed of sex and we shouldn't talk about it, we should experience it. We should
Yep.
want it all the time. And I'm just like, what? Like, y'all want sex? What?
And what a mixed message to make sex seem like this terrible thing that you should never want. But then but in the case of asexuals who do not want it or rarely want it, to be told there is something wrong about you. Like,
Yeah,
wait.
it's like,
So I listened to you. Well, like, you didn't listen to the person. So I am. I am fitting this thing that you are saying I should, be feeling or doing, or I guess not doing, and you're still coming after me. It seems like a you problem, buddy.
yeah.
Ugh.
People are weird sometimes. This is why
Sometimes, all the times, most of the times.
true all
Yeah.
of the times.
Well, so speaking of weird, before I go into my final weird, silly question, is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
Nope. I think we covered it all pretty well.
We did it! Yay!
Yay!
I think in that case, all right, I already asked you to solve asexual visibility, but I'm going to ask you another really hard question. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
All right. So the year is, I don't know, 2030. I forgot what year it was. 2020 made everything confusing. The year is 2030, okay?
All right.
Where do you see us as a society in terms of do you see us becoming more accepting? Do you see us becoming more desirous of using these different labels? Do you think we'll have even more? Basically, how do you think we're going to change as a community when it comes to the ace visibility we discussed, and also when it comes to just more general acceptance of queer identities, marginalized identities actually in general?
Um, the way kind of see it is because as a global society, we may become more like we're gonna absolutely become more accepting and more understanding of people's differences. But and like the main reason I think this is because like if you just look at the last 20 years, we'll say, like rights for, people of color, for gay people, trans people, and people in the LGBTQ plus community. It's just we've come so far in 20 years, like already, and I think in another 10 years we could go even further. We can do so much more.
Well, that's what I'm hoping for as well. I'm sorry for making you predict the future of the universe, but
Oh no, it's fine. My friends ask me to do it all the time. they,
that's
they ask me, like, when I go to bed every night, I always get at least one text that just says, "Can you predict this for me?" and I'm just like,
whoa.
and I'm just like, buddy, my dreams don't work like that.
I mean, I almost didn't ask this question. I almost went with something else, but I guess you've got like do you have like a psychic thing going on here or
Maybe.
oh.
like, I've talked to my boyfriend about this, and he's always been, and like, I mentioned it to him, like, yeah, I sometimes have like prophetic dreams of like really mundane things. Like, my brain will just like dream something, and I'll just wake up and I'll just be like, that was weird, okay, and then just forget about it. And then, like, a month or two later, that thing that happened in the dream will happen, and I'm just like, what?
Oh
And he was like,
my
oh yeah, that's
gosh.
happened to me too. And I'm just like, so I'm not alone.
Whoa. I feel like this wow, we just took a different direction, didn't we?
Yeah, we just went completely off the topic of asexuality, but you know what? It's chill.
You're the ace psychic. The
I'm I'm convinced at this point that asexual people have magical powers. Like,
Ooh.
because it's like, I also saw this meme that was like, homosexual standing on one leg, heterosexual standing on the other leg, bisexual standing on both legs, pansexual you are lying on the floor, asexual you are levitating.
Heck yeah. Oh man, I've always wanted to fly or float. I'll take float. I'll take float.
Yeah,
Wow.
I just and then the text at the bottom was just, in other words, asexual people are magical, respect them.
Well, you guys heard it here first. Aces are magical. Respect them. Let that be the lesson you take away today, as well as let's increase ace visibility and generally treat each other, like people and be
Treat
decent
people with
human beings.
kindness. Harry
Treat.
Styles had it right when he made an entire song called Treat People with Kindness.
I didn't even know that was a song. Why am I learning everything today? Well, thank you again, Marth, for joining us today as we discussed asexual visibility, how to be a better human being, and also why aces are magical. It has been a pleasure having you here on the show today.
It's been a pleasure being here.
Yay, that's what we like to hear. If you would also like to become part of the conversation, please message acechathats@gmail.com. If you have an idea for another topic to discuss, also message that email or comment down below. Don't forget to I already said comment. Don't forget to do the comments and subscribe, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram. As always, this has been Ace Chat, and thanks for chatting with us.